Hi folks, Toad Hancock's here with Visordown.com, and today I am stood in sunny Hinckley in front of the new Triumph Trident, which is going to be, if Triumph are correct, quite a big model for them in the coming years. I'm stood here with Steve Sargent. Can't shake hands, do a little air elbow there for you. This has been quite a big campaign for you over the last couple of months, hasn't it? Getting this bike out there to the public and so on and so forth. Haven't got shows to rely on. And it's caused quite a bit of a buzz, in all honesty, on our site, on social media, something that a lot of people are talking about. And it's your kind of first foray into a model range that is kind of tailored to people who are new to riding or newer to riding and also A2 license holders. So just before we go into it in detail, tell us a bit about it and tell us about how we got to where we are at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. So for us, this is a new segment for Triumph, and you know, it's kind of a new entry point into the Triumph range for us in many ways. It's a segment of the market which is incredibly popular. It's incredibly popular with people who are relatively new into biking, but it's also popular for people who are just looking for a great all-round bike. You know, the kind of bikes that we're talking about in there, things like the Yamaha MT-07, you know, the Kawasaki Z650, the Honda CB650R. So, you know, these are bikes that sell in some pretty big numbers. Mm-hmm. But, you know, it's a very competitive segment. So as Triumph, we have to find our way to compete in there. Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any particular global market where you're seeing this bike as doing much better than any other, or are you looking at this as a real sort of global winner for Triumph in years to come?
Yeah, no, it's a really big global market. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Europe is a really big market for these kind of bikes. The UK is a big market, US, but also equally important and, you know, equally large in terms of numbers is Southeast Asia. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you've got markets like, you know, Thailand, Malaysia, you know, Australasia, Australia, New Zealand, good markets for it. So, you know, it really is, you know, really important global product.
So I've had a quick look at the bike in the room next door. It wasn't completely clear on some of the images that we've seen thus far, where the bike was kind of disguised and you'd sort of hidden it under gallons of white paint, that it is actually pretty much all of the bike is brand new. This is an all new frame for this bike, isn't it? I'm right in thinking.
It is. It's a completely new frame. It's a steel fabricated frame. Mm-hmm. So completely new to this bike. The engine is also, you know, a significant revision over the other triples that we've done before. So, you know, it really is a completely ground up design.
So the engine that you're just talking about, it kind of has its roots in a bike from the Street Triple range, am I right in thinking, which is the Street Triple S? Yeah,
so we've developed a number of variants of that triple engine over time. Obviously, we started off as a 675 triple in the Daytona, yeah, and the original Street. You know, we have developed that engine over time to use it in the 800 Tigers, the 765 Street Triple, now the 900 Tiger. Yeah. So it's an engine family, but in terms of the components that it shares with the Street Triple, it's probably not as many as you think. Mm. So we've got common crankcase castings, for example, but the machining is different. But probably the big difference is we've changed the bore and the stroke compared to the 660 Street Triple. So we've got a smaller bore, longer stroke. Okay. The knock-ons to that is completely new crankshaft, completely new pistons, completely new piston rings. It's got different cam profiles. Right. It's got different input and output shafts in there. It's got a new selector drum. The whole intake system is completely new. So a completely new airbox, completely different throttle bodies, completely different intake, completely different exhaust system. So there's probably an awful lot more change than there is common. Right,
okay. And that is all, I mean, it would have been, it's in my head right now that it would have been a shed load easier just to stick the 660 in it and just go, there we go, we've got a new model without doing all the development work. Why were you so focused on changing the bore and the stroke, for instance, and the cam profiles? Is that more to do with Euro 5, or is that to get a different engine character out of this model? Or?
Yeah, it's primarily to get a different engine character out and to really deliver something fresh and competitive in this particular segment. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the other bikes in the segment, you've got a couple of twin cylinders in there. Now, twin cylinders are probably renowned for the bottom end and mid-range, and then they run out of a bit of steam at the top end. Mm-hmm. You've got a four-cylinder in there that, you know, to get the performance out of it, you've got to be at the top end of the rev range. And what we wanted to do was to kind of have the best of all worlds in many respects, but we wanted to make sure that we were kind of matching the twins low down and in the mid-range.
Right.
So to do that, we went to the engine boys and said, look, we know overall we've got a really good package, but we really want to match these twins further down the rev range. So they went away, did the clever stuff, came back and said, well, if that's what you want, these are all the bits you're going to have to change.
So we saw some dyno graphs, just to put that sort of what Steve's saying into perspective. What's the numbers on the dyno? Because you have access to almost all of the bike's torque from, is it about 3,000?
About 3,700, I think,
I'm testing
RPM.
him now. I'm testing him. He's sweating. Up to about, was it 8,000 or something? There's a shed load of the torque is, and I can see somebody ferreting away over there trying to find the information, but most of the torque is available through most of the rev range, which is pretty impressive, because if you've ridden a 4-cylinder 650 that is 95 horsepower in it, to enable it to be A2 compliant, they do take a while to spin up and to get going, and then once they're into the fun zone, you're already kind of into that zone where if you're a new rider, you're going to want to be shutting the throttle and having a little breather. So that's quite interesting, and do you know what? I can kind of see why you did it, because I rode the 660 variation of the street triple,
right.
And it was in 47 bhp restricted form as well, and it did just feel like the engine was kind of getting choked a little bit. So I guess with the bottom end that this has got, as opposed to that, if you've got it in 47 bhp form, you might not miss the top end quite so much, because you've got extra torque. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, you're right in thinking that. And then obviously when it's in unrestricted form, you've got even more at the top end. So, we're going up to 81 PS in the unrestricted form, 64 Newton meters. So once you've got through your A2 license and you've got your full license, go back to the standard throttle position sensor, bang the standard tune in, and then you're back to full power.
And that's all something people can get done at dealers really quickly.
Yeah, it's a quick job.
There's another big point that you made in the sort of the press conference that we had around the bike, and that was regarding the kind of the incremental cost of ownership once you've actually bought the bike, which is not something that a lot of people think about when they're buying a motorcycle, but actually it's quite significant. If you own a bike for 3 years on a PCP, there's a set number of services that you're going to have to get through. You can refresh me on the numbers, because I've forgotten, but it's quite significantly cheaper to get this thing serviced than a lot of the other bikes in the competition, is that right?
Yeah, so we spend a lot of time doing durability testing on our motorcycles and on our engines, and the reason we do that is so that we can increase those service intervals, but also, when the bike does go into a service, we have a look at how can we make it easier for the technician to do that service as well. So, we've got a 10,000 mile service interval on the bike, which is quite high. And then if you look at the cost of ownership over those early years, on average, you're probably about 25% cheaper in terms of cost of ownership over those early years.
Just on the servicing alone. Fair play. So we've done all the oily bits and the nuts and bolts. Let's talk about the styling of this, because we first saw it in a kind of funky matte white paint job, which I actually thought looked really, really good. Now we can see it in all of its glory, and it looks even better. Where did you start with this design? It's called a Trident, so did you like to look back as well, Triumph do? When you're looking forward, you like to look at what's come before. Is that where you started with this machine and sort of drew ideas from the past, or?
In terms of the name, not really. So what we wanted to do with the styling is we wanted to give it a kind of a contemporary modern take on a Triumph Roadster. So we wanted to push the style in a slightly different direction than where we'd been before. And that means, keeping super clean lines, keeping that nice short back end, keeping it, in some respects, simple but sophisticated, if you like.
A bit like me.
A little bit like you. And then obviously we've kept some of the Triumph signature cues, like the knee indents on the tank and things like that people recognise as being a Triumph cue. The Trident name itself, primarily, the importance of that is Trident was what Triumph originally used to indicate that they got a triple engine. Yeah. So that kind of lineage back to the triple engine was important. But also, if we look at Hinckley Triumphs, Trident was the first Roadster. And at that point in time, it kind of was the entry point into the Hinckley Triumph range. Yeah. So the idea of using Trident is this is now the new entry point into the Hinckley Triumph range.
sort of history repeating. So I've sat on the bike, and I am happy to report that for a short ass like me, it's very, very comfortable, and sort of, you definitely feel like you're sitting in it and not on it, which is good because it gives you a kind of a sense of security. So some of the key numbers here, we've got the seat height is
805.
805, which I can flat foot, pretty much flat foot, both feet on the floor, and I'm 5'7" and 3/4. Actually 2/8, but you know. So it's quite comfortable, it's quite accessible. You've got a full range of accessories as well for this bike, am I right in thinking as well?
Yeah, so we've got a whole range of accessories that you can use to kind of personalise the look of the bike. So that includes some brushed belly pan finishes. You've got a fly screen on the bike. You've got the turned anodised parts that you can use to modify the bike. Then you've got the practical accessories, fuel tank bag. You've got the rear bag on the seat, on the tail pack. You've got scrolling LED indicators that you can put on the bike. You've got the Bluetooth module. So, you know, first in class, we've got connectivity on the bike. So fit the accessory Bluetooth module. You can then do your turn-to-turn navigation.
Right, okay.
You know, you can see your calls coming in. You can navigate your way through your playlist, play whatever you want to play whilst you're riding along.
Okay.
Operate your GoPro, all that kind of good stuff using the My Triumph connectivity app.
So that's all the stuff that, if you know the My Triumph connectivity, it's all the stuff that's on sort of the Tiger 900s and also the Speed Triple as well, I think you can get it on there?
Yep, Rocket, Scrambler 1200.
That's quite cool. So, when is this thing going to be landing in dealers? When can people ride it, and how much is it going to cost?
So people will be able to get their hands on it from the end of January.
Okay.
So not too long to wait.
Nope.
And the price is 7,195.
Okay. And when will I get to get a go on it?
Hopefully in the coming weeks. COVID restrictions permitting.
Oh God, yeah. Actually, while you just mentioned COVID there, obviously the whole world is in a shitstorm of turmoil at the moment. Has this bike been affected? I mean, would this have been launched any earlier had COVID not been around, or have you managed to get it through?
No, it's actually absolutely bang on time.
Right.
So we haven't really suffered any slowdown in any of our new model development as a result of COVID. You know, we've had some people who've had to have some time off when they've been self-isolating, but overall we've not slowed down at all.
Oh, fair play. That's good to hear. Well, listen, thank you very much for having me along. Thanks for watching, folks, and you can be sure that the first chance that we get to ride this thing, you'll see a full review and a video on Visordown.com. Thanks for watching.